morning. My name is Leila Rao. Welcome to the newest installation of our LIA100 series, where we talk to amazing women in our Agile and Lean community. With me today is Nadezdha Belousova. She is both an extraordinary coach, a business agilist, and a wonderful friend. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Okay, good. So let's dive right in, because I know you have an amazing story to tell. So I know where you are today, but tell me, how did you get started? Did you plan for a career in Agile or in coaching, or where did you start?
Oh gosh, where did I start? I think generally speaking, it starts with education. Got my degree in psychology, and I don't know if you know that, but people who get their degrees in psychotherapy, psychology, and any other deep diving under surface human factors professions, the very first reaction we get once we reveal what our background is, can you tell something about me? So I really and absolutely enjoyed my education. That's probably one of the best gifts that I gave myself, is learning about humans, the studying the cognitive processes and overall understanding the adult development, because humans are everywhere you go, and most important, you take yourself wherever you go. So learning the language of talking to myself, defining things for myself, is probably was one of the most important pivotal points for me. And since my mom is a software engineer, I think I had kind of a predisposition to certain jobs on the DNA level. So it was easy to step into the digital work, and starting predominantly in marketing and HR, and making incredible amount of horizontal shifts in my career. Enabled me holistic view on organization, because one thing you learn very quickly is pain points of each part of organization you step into. So when I started working in HR, I was struggling with lots and lots of stakeholders coming with all kind of requests, and not enough capacity to cover all these requests. Same, by the way, in marketing. I got incredibly lucky meeting people who introduced me to the concept of Agile. My very first mentor was one of the founders of Agile community in Belarus. And through these conversations and learning about Kanban and Scrum and everything, the mechanical part of it, was really, really insightful. And I was always thinking about my way to lead as something about me. So this is me, my authentic way of dealing with problems, connecting people, and so on and so forth. Fast forward a few years, I learned there is a term for that. There's servant leadership, and there are much more to that I could imagine from my personal perspective. So yeah, spending lots of time with software engineers. I'm still making jokes that I was brought up by software engineers like Mowgli, you know. So speaking their language, can relate to their problems. So I think there is deep instinctive part of me of meeting people where they are, learning their language, relating their problems. And because I'm bringing the universal human condition background, and finding patterns of overcoming challenges, and patterns of learning, relearning, and unlearning, this is like the overall, I think, where it all started. And it keeps going.
Fair enough. Okay, so I've got lots of questions based on what I'm hearing. First thing you mentioned is moving horizontally. So was there a career plan, or did you have an objective, or was it more about let's see what's next and based on what emerged for you?
I think the overall intent, and it's still with me, my deep desire is to make an impact. And I was moving or gravitating to the points of organization where at certain time, with the skills, competences, and expertise I had by that time, I could have the biggest impact. So this is how I was drawn to different domains, different places in an organization. So I cannot say I had a career plan. It's just more of I had the plan of conquering the world, and I was using all kind of things coming my way. But generally, I would say it's not only about the goals or objectives I had. I'm incredibly fortunate meeting people throughout my whole life, including my professional life, who saw the glimpse of something in me, the potential that I didn't see myself. And they were kind and wise to offer me their support and help, and guide me or direct me in different places where I was picking up new knowledge, new skills. So I think it was partially organic, but there is definitely some pieces of synchronicity involved. So it didn't just I did it all by myself. I think, of course, I applied lots of efforts in making things happen, but it wouldn't be possible without people who saw my potential.
So let's talk a bit more about that, because in Agile, we do value, I think, the community aspect of who we are and what we do together. How did you get involved with the Agile community? Was it mostly through these individual mentors, or at what point did it become, here's a bigger thing I'm part of?
Honestly, it's hard to say because back then it was 2008, 2009. The Agile movement was only getting traction in Belarus, or at least in my immediate surroundings, so to say. Probably there were more hotspots, but it was taking over more and more. And I think it's my insatiable curiosity about things and willingness to connect the dots and ask questions and try to connect it to what I already know and apply it to the problems and context that I was struggling with. I just kept finding people who were as much passionate about finding the answers, not even finding the answers, but more like living questions together and experimenting. And this is how I got introduced to lots and lots of people who were willing to learn. And this is how I eventually end up. One of the most impactful places where I learned about Agile was Agile Competency Center of one of the companies where I was in the core team. And there were, in the maximum amount, there were 8 of us in the company of 25,000 people. Oh boy, we did so many incredible cutting edge things that I'm still using up today, although that was like 6-7 years ago.
Okay, speaking of which, what is your work today? I know that you do a lot of different things, but how would you describe who you are professionally today, where your attention is focused on?
I prefer calling myself like integral value catalyst rather than putting myself in the box, although that of course helps to find instant applicability of your expertise. I definitely focus on management consulting and professional coaching, as well as organizational design and overall change management. all under the hood of strategy of business agility, because I'm really curious about higher level of complexity of things. That's my jazz. The higher complexity it is, the more excited I am. Yeah, but overall, I would say it's more of a work on the system level. This is what I absolutely excited about, the challenges of that level. And that said, still fascinated by the level of working with individuals and teams and what is possible with all the potential that is revealed.
Okay, so integral value catalyst. Tell me more about how you came up with that tagline, because it sounds pretty fascinating.
Well, integral comes from integral theory, and also the fact that I'm an integral coach. So that's not just a fancy word. It has a lot of meaning for me. Integral meaning inclusive, meaning holistic, attending to all the quadrants, including all perspectives. Value is focusing on the right thing. From the Agile community, there are lots of people who hang on the word Agile. I don't have a grip of this word anymore because it's just a tool. And what I want to focus on in actually enabling benefits for my clients and bringing value, whatever the value is in the specific individual context of my clients. And catalyst, for me, means I am the instrument of change.
And that pretty much describes you in a nutshell, I think. So I love that your tagline is matches both your professional and your personal value system.
Thank you.
Okay, so taking this set of values and aptitudes that are you and applying it to complex systems, what is success for you? When are you most fulfilled?
I think for me, success is a temporary emotional state as opposed to destination. And I think there are a few factors that would be definitely serving my client. If my client is fulfilled, if I'm able to meet them where they are and invite them on a journey that brings joy, that brings value and learning, that is definitely one of the important factors for me, because all the work I'm doing is on behalf of the goals of the communities, clients, people I'm serving. I also like the elegance of the solutions. This is another part that probably sparks joy in me. And this elegance becomes possible with co-creation. It's not completely coming from me, but there is the whole dynamics and process of co-creation that helps to see the essential, shining, brilliant qualities of people and inviting them to life is something that is deeply sacred and insanely playful, that I really enjoy.
And that is something the world needs more of. So not just business, but the general world. So
but you know, this is the part of where the whole term of work-life balance is not really valid, because we're alive when we're at work. So
okay, I have never heard anyone point that out actually. So yeah, it's work life. So are you not living when you're working? So what does work-life balance look like for you? What's a better phrase for it?
I prefer to use probably work-life fusion, because our work, there is this beautiful insight I got from my recent coaching studies, that is, everything is practice. And the way we show up at work, in relationships, in our creative hobbies, essentially whatever we're doing, is practice. Practice in being fully ourselves. And whatever we do is the manifestation of who we are. And once you keep that in mind, then every conversation becomes seeding.
Seeding for what? For anything that can be co-created, or a specific direction, or?
And that's the beauty of seeding. You never know what's going to grow.
I feel like I walked into that one, but yeah, okay. So we reveal ourselves by what we do and not what we say, I think, is another way of phrasing that. And that sounds like what you're seeing too.
Yeah. But also, did you notice how the narrative, the stories we tell about ourselves, to ourselves, change as we grow?
Just a little bit, yeah.
So in this, the change of narrative, even if you look at the community, Agile community, the way we used to certain keywords and how we go around them is changing, is shifting. We are no longer talking only about teams. Teams are an important component of that. We're no longer talking just about software. And the narrative and the vocabulary we use introducing change in other parts of organization changes. So on that side, just coming back from where I started, my second foreign language, which is I think under permanent construction, is German. And I was asked by some friends as well. German is a very special language, by the way. It sounds and it has certain perception. Why did you choose German? Why not French or Spanish or Italian, which are seemingly more melodical? And my response to that was all major pioneering schools of philosophy and psychology originated in German language. And once you get really intimate and in touch with the language, you recognize that German language has certain words that require a sentence in other languages. So it's the concentration with meaning per word is really high. And this is what I was really curious about. And this is interesting, talking about the narrative and language, and even the identity that we form once we start learning a foreign language. So this is what I also notice is shifts in the community as Agile in a way spilled over software engineering teams and start cascading into different parts of organization.
Hey, cascading is, I think, the right word for that. But going back to the point about German, yes. As somebody who tried to learn German, what fascinated me was one word expressed so many different things. Like the density of meaning per word is extraordinary. Like, why can't you have one word that just means one thing? No, each word has to mean like 5 different things.
Let alone the way of creating words by putting them next to each other.
To the point where, yes, no, I very much had that reaction. And as an American who did learn French and Spanish, but really struggled with German, yes, the sounds are different. It sounds very harsh. But it's very clean. There's a logic. and almost a precision science to the way Germanic languages are structured and also have evolved, I think, that is very distinct from English, which is Germanic language, but English is a whole different thing by itself.
Well, I still wonder because I didn't do the proof check of the fact, but I think I was reading somewhere there was a voting in the United States which language to be the official language of the United States. And it was a very close tie with German. So probably the world would be speaking different language. But again, full disclaimer, I didn't do the proof check of the fact, but I was reading somewhere about it.
What little I know, that sounds about right, depending on which time you're talking about. The US certainly went through population shifts where we were mostly Germanic, and there's still pockets. I live in Pennsylvania. There's some pockets in Pennsylvania that are still very Germanic Dutch tradition. They hold on to a language, they speak their own little version and dialect that's very distinct. So yes, but I want to talk about, you mentioned cascading, right? So Agile started out in IT and teams, and we're cascading or spilling over to other organizations. What else, or how else could Agile speak to other people who may not necessarily be in IT or teams? How could we demonstrate our value to them?
I think if you look back to standard or in a way typical way we grow and develop, we tend to get fascinated and amazed with that new theory, that new solution, that new tool. And because we're so fascinated with it, we tend to go around shoving it down the throats of everybody we meet because it worked for us, because it's so amazing. I think it's not only about Agile, you can apply it to pretty much anything. And that takes certain life experience, I would say, to recognize that your joy and happiness of finding certain solution or being enlightened by a model that suddenly opened up new doors or connected the dots is your personal experience. And recognizing the right of everybody to have their own personal experience around things and respect that right is something I think we should work on. And this is where going back to meeting people where they are. In the grand scheme of things, the organization that was able to bring in Agile and invest into building capabilities of Agile way of work probably has done something right to be able to afford this. And with the new knowledge and the new perspective, going around neglecting all the efforts and perspectives that existed before or pre-Agile is not necessarily wise, because this is how you're not making friends with that. I think about speaking Agile, we shouldn't speak Agile at all. We should speak the language of problems we're trying to solve. And if Agile happens to be something they would like to experiment with, that's great. And I think this is where we're going to the level of values. And one and the same value, ironically, paradoxically, can be carried out in a myriad of ways. And not one way is more valid or legit than the other. It might be less or more optimal under a set of circumstances or within certain context. Also, keeping in mind where the person or group of people are on their journey when they employ a certain way of carrying out that value. So that said, Meeting people where they are and honoring everything they've done up till they met Agile.
No, I love it. It makes total sense. So the last question I have to wrap up this conversation is, what would be your advice for women who are maybe starting at an earlier point in their journey? What have you learned that you would like to pass along to other people?
That's a great question. And that feels like lots of responsibility, sharing something that probably worked up till now, but I don't know if it's going to work for someone else.
What worked for you? And we can learn from your experience and wisdom.
I think the journey of development is not only acquiring new knowledge, skills, perspectives. Most important, it's about letting go. And you can sense the fluidity and smoothness and the ability to face uncertainty and being responsive in it by the very loosening the grip to a certain idea or a certain tool or technique or way of looking at things. So by letting go, we're letting ourselves free.
Not surprising that it's both incredibly insightful and very complex. And I wish we had a whole other conversation to dig into it. But I think that's a great way to wrap up this LIA100 conversation. Nadezdha, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you.